Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3815. Today's date is January 13, 2025. Sorry, 2026. It's been almost like a night at 10:05 p.m. Okay, let's just jump into the question. Alright, the question is, what if you could swap ages with anyone? That's a really good question. Okay, first of all, what exactly is this question, and why am I asking this question to myself? This is what if question. Why am I asking this question to myself? What if question is always been really interested waiting with the answer. It kind of like forced me to think about that reality. When I try to think about that reality, or when I try to create that reality inside of my mind, I'm kind of like utilizing my knowledge, information, and experience that I've been through, and somehow it kind of like felt good. Disclaimer: the information that I'm trying to tell you is not exactly right, or is not exactly wrong either. It's raw, it's unfiltered, it's just my opinion. So do not believe in any kind of like information that I'm saying, or do not seek for any kind of like information that I'm saying. It's just my opinion, and opinion are subjective. Now regarding about the question says that what if you could swap ages with anyone? Now if I try to think about that, can we able to do this thing? Can we able to swap ages with someone else? No, we cannot. Okay, yeah. But what if we could do? Like imagine that we just have to hold hand, okay, yeah, and kind of like somebody just do some sort of kind of like a mantra or things like that, and then we kind of like swap ages, right? so so what if such thing will gonna happen? Then what would be that? Well, first of all, it's that there is a lot of thing will gonna happen. Okay. First of all, is that people will not gonna die, or maybe people are want to get into the new body. But if such thing will gonna happen, I don't know. It's just like I try to imagine, like I don't know. I'm just kind of like suddenly imagine this kind of like movie name, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Fountain of Youth. Okay, yeah, and it's just kind of like a thing that I don't know. Okay, yeah. Okay, I don't know. My head is kind of like somewhere else. Okay, yeah. I don't know. I was kind of like thinking about something else and kind of like talking about something else, and that's why I'm not really focused on the things that I wanted to say. Whatever. So imagine a scenario that what if that we should supposed to be hold our hand, and whoever the person wanted to swap the life, it's really essential that other person should supposed to be ready for that. Okay, like basically I am kind of like swapping a life with someone else, so I also want to do this thing, as well as that other person who's also wanted to do this thing. Then we have to kind of like say any kind of like a mantra or things like that, and then we kind of like swap the life. If this thing will gonna happen after this process, your soul or maybe your brain or your mind will kind of like a switch. Okay, example is this thing that if I kind of like do this ritual, then probably let's just say my age would be like a 60, and the person that I'm swapping a life, that person is the age is, let's just say, 12-year-old. So we are both ready. Okay, so I am kind of like swapping the life, then I would kind of like became 12-year-old guy. But my body is a kind of like my body is the new body. Okay, yeah, this is the new guy body. Okay, and basically is this thing that basically I'm kind of like a 12-year-old guy who has a mind of almost like a 60-year-old experience and things like that, but still I'm look like that 12-year-old guy. Now what if such thing will gonna happen? Then probably is this thing that the people will might gonna treat me as a kid, even if I'm kind of like a very old person from mind and things like that. I do have experience regarding about everything, politics, life, and everything, but still people will not gonna kind of like simply take seriously to me. Okay, one thing. if people don't really know if you swap the life. If the people knows that you actually swap the life, then people are kind of like going to treat you very nicely. But still, from legal point of perspective, that is also not really good too. Okay, yeah. Like if I put the kind of like a legal system, then it's not really good. So basically, if you have to do this thing ritual, then you have to do a illegal. Okay, yeah. Because legal point of perspective, then it would be considered as a kind of like illegal to do this thing, because obviously people are kind of like a do this thing will for very wrong purposes and things like that. People will not gonna die and things like that. Okay, yeah. They always gonna swap the life and things like that. But there is also another thing. Okay, yeah. Let's just imagine a scenario that you are a 60-year-old guy, a pilot. Okay, yeah. And you wanted to swap the life. Now you swap the life with a 15-year-old guy. Okay, yeah. Now as a 15-year-old guy, you already have a kind of like an experience regarding about how should you supposed to be kind of like a fly a plane and things like that, because you have a kind of like a ton of experience. Okay, yeah. Now even if other people knows that you actually swap the life and things like that, but still they won't let you to kind of like a fly the plane. Okay, or else if they could kind of like allow you to fly the plane, you cannot able to fly the plane. Why is that? Because let me tell you one thing. Yeah, your mind knows that how should you supposed to fly the plane and things like that, but your body does not. What I'm trying to tell you is this thing that in this particular scenario, you are actually swapping the brain and things like that, but your body is a kind of like a same, right? So is this thing na ki even if you kind of like a swap the life, even if you have the knowledge regarding about how you supposed to fly the plane and things like that, but your body is not able to do this thing. Your body is not able to kind of like simply fly the plane and things like that. Simple example is this thing. Instead of plane, let's just consider as a bicycle. Okay, yeah. So imagine is this thing that you are a kind of like a very athletic Olympic bicycle rider. Okay, yeah, you know how to kind of like a bicycle and things and that. Now you swap the life with a kind of like a 12-year-old guy. Now 12-year-old guy might not kind of like a simply ride the bicycle in a that way that you should supposed to be ride the bicycle. Why? Because there is some sort of muscle memory that we have. Okay, yeah. That muscle memory is not actually solved. That muscle memory is not actually kind of like a simply swap. Like that. How do I supposed to explain this thing? It's a kind of like a thing that na your mind is also associated with your body too. Okay, your mind and your body is not a kind of like a different thing. It's a one thing, and because of it's a one thing, it kind of like a simply connect with very easily. But when suddenly there is a mind switch, and you are kind of like have a very different body, then it's a mind is kind of like a very difficult to kind of like adjust with your new body. And another thing is that because of this new body doesn't really have any experience regarding about that how should we supposed to fly the plane, or how do we supposed to kind of like simply ride the bicycle like Olympic and things like that. Even if you have all those information regarding about how to do this thing, but you can't perform like that way. And that is a kind of like a simply became drawbacks. Okay, yeah. And this is what kind of like a simply very little bit wrong and things like that. Another thing is that in legal point of perspective, it might be kind of like considered as a illegal. Okay, if you could do this thing, it might be considered as a illegal and things like that. Okay, yeah. Now another thing is that how do you supposed to find such a person who would supposed to be swap the life and things like that? Obviously other person might not do this thing. So I don't know. Okay, yeah. It's a kind of like a very hypothetical scenario regarding about every possible point of perspective, but at the moment I am not really kind of like a thinking about that. There is also one thing that I wanted to mention. Okay, yeah. Let's just say you are a kind of like a 12-year-old guy. Okay, yeah. Now you swap the life with a kind of like a 60-year-old guy. So probably is this thing when you have a new body, your mind is kind of like a 12-year-old guy, but your body is not that thing. So you might not do kind of like a the way that you want to do, like basically playing games or kind of like hanging out with your friend and things like that. You cannot able to do this thing because your body is not meant to be that. Another thing is that na, ki because of you are 60, people are kind of like giving you a lot of respect because you are kind of like a 60 and things and that, because at that particular age people are kind of like a show little bit of respect and things like that. But your body is, your mind is not 12-year-old guy, so you just pretty confused and things like that. So yeah, but still it's kind of like a somebody the person who kind of like a getting younger body, that particular person kind of like a win in every possible scenario. Yeah, regarding about muscle memory and things like that, muscle memory was also kind of like a something that key improve throughout the time. It's not really that it takes too much amount of time, but still is this thing that key, I don't know. Okay, yeah, like let's just say we kind of like get this fountain of youth and things like that. Would you kind of like trade your kind of like a body with someone else? I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, I wanted to live 100 year. That is the goal that I have, and I will be definitely gonna live for 100 year. But for that particular purpose, I will not gonna kind of like simply swap my life with someone else, because it not only kind of like considered as a wrong, but it also kind of like somebody feels that key, like I don't know how do I supposed to explain this thing. Is I love my body, I love the who am I, what am I, things like that. It's kind of like something, this question is not meant for kind of like a swapping the life and swapping the body and things and that and that. It's kind of like consider that this question is kind of like a tell us that you should supposed to love yourself, and that is a kind of like a most important lesson that this question is actually asked. Okay, yeah, like basically if you love yourself, if you love your body and things like that, then why do you supposed to do this thing? Okay, yeah, like let me tell you one thing, every person is not a perfect. Do you think that I should supposed to have six packs or things or that? It's not. A visual representation of your body is not meant to be kind of like a good, or not meant to be right. Like basically is this thing, the person that you are seeing having a six pack body and things and that, they might not have eat anything at all. Let me tell you one thing, that the apps that you are actually seeing is because of that having less water thing inside of them. Let me tell you one thing, that when you see lot of kind of like a veins and things like that, is because of that they haven't really drink for 1 or 2 days of water. Like they basically kind of like a consume just a kind of like a some solid food. They are not consuming liquid food, and when they are not consuming liquid food, their body is kind of like a dehydrate, and when their body is dehydrated, it kind of like a look like kind of like a veins and things like that, like a basically Wolverine. Okay, yeah, all the shots of the Wolverine that you are actually seeing on the veins and things like that, they kind of like mention this thing the Hugh Jackman haven't really drink that much amount of water and things like that. Okay, yeah, another thing is this thing that they have to go through a lot of pain and things like that. The people who are actually showing their abs and things like that, they know how much effort that they put for that particular process, and probably for what, for kind of like a visual representation that they should supposed to look good. If they are kind of like a particular person, they are earning money is because of the visual representation, then yeah, they should supposed to do this thing like actor and things like that, actor or model or things like that. But you and me, like normal people, it's not. It's really essential for you to fit the body. Okay, like not everybody is kind of like a fit, but not everybody is kind of like a something that it cannot transform. Like no one person can ugly, no one at all. Because I seen a lot of people who are kind of like look very ugly, but after they got money, after they got kind of like a discipline regarding about things, they look really good. We have a lot of example like Hardik Pandya just took the before and after image. Okay, then basically there is a lot of kind of like somebody, the people who are kind of like look very kind of like somebody dumb and things like that, but they kind of like after they got money or things, they kind of like work on themselves and things like that. Your body is kind of like something get new after a kind of like a 6 year probably, like, sorry, 6 months or maybe 9 months. Yeah, like literally your body is kind of like replaced by new body, like a new cell and things like that. Okay, yeah, after a kind of like a 6 months or 9 months, I'm not really sure about that particular exact number, but yeah. So basically this is saying your body is also change according to the time too. Okay, yeah, you have to work on your body. If you look kind of like somebody fat, you have to work out. So this is actually kind of like I think the main message of this question is about that you should supposed to be love yourself instead of kind of like switching the body and things like that. It considered as a kind of like a shortcut. And let me tell you one thing, throughout my entire life, or maybe whatever the life that I kind of like live, shortcut is not a kind of like a way to achieve things and nothing really at all. Whatever the like, what is like, let me tell you one thing. I'm gonna give you kind of like some example. Okay, yeah. If you are kind of like drawing any kind of like a picture, okay, yeah. Now I'm not really saying that ki how good is your driving and how good is your drawing and things like that. But whatever you kind of like a draw, oh yeah. After you draw, you kind of like a proud yourself that you draw that particular thing. Maybe kind of like you draw kind of like a very worse painting or things like that, but you draw that thing. It kind of like a feels like proud to kind of like a draw that thing. The way that you kind of like a done by yourself, and then you kind of like a see this thing. Yeah, I did that thing. It felt good and things like that. This is what it is, na. If you kind of like a cheat or kind of like somebody get someone drawing or kind of like a somebody, I don't know. Okay, yeah. Like you are always been kind of like a pretending to be kind of like a look good, but you are kind of like a crippled from inside and things like that. Whatever, it's not the kind of like assembly way that I should supposed to go there, but probably the message of this kind of like a question is about that ki you should supposed to love your body. Okay, yeah. I belong to the India and I am a kind of like a male person too. Okay, yeah. In India, body shaming or body kind of like a things are not exactly here. Like basically that ki male are kind of like so much. Okay, yeah, it's not really that. But in female point of perspective, they are kind of like suffering from a lot from this body thing. Okay, yeah, like women are always been kind of like a thing that they should supposed to look like this and that and that. And but why does women are actually think like that way? It's because of that women are always judged by her look, even if they have kind of like somebody too much education and things and that and that. But still, society is actually judged by the looks, and that is true, by the way. Okay, any scenario or any kind of like a country you went, women judge by how she looks and things like that. So basically, because of her condition and things like that, every society, every country, or every kind of like a woman are always think like that she should supposed to be look good and things like that. And that's why she was kind of like a do a lot of makeup, kind of like a do this and that and that. Probably. In male, it doesn't really have that much. Male are kind of like a somebody. Usually is this thing that ki male should supposed to be judged by the how much money they should supposed to be on. It shouldn't supposed to be look. So probably male doesn't really have that kind of like a body thing or stuff like that. But usually is this thing that ki swapping the body and things like that, it should supposed to be kind of like a woman thinks a lot, and probably this kind of like a question is actually meant for women too, so that they should supposed to be kind of like a love your body or love the way that they should look and things like that. I don't need, just my opinion. Whatever. Okay. So this is it. I should supposed to end here. And thank you.